Secrets of the Heart, Betrayal Unveiled. I'll never forget the night I saw something I was never meant to see. It was late. The moon hung low, casting long shadows across the village, and everything was quiet. Too quiet. I had been walking back from the river, where I had gone to clear my head after an argument with my brother. That's when I saw them, hidden behind the baobab tree. The chief's wife, Awa, and my best friend, Kofi. They weren't just talking. I knew something was wrong by the way their bodies pressed together in the shadows. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake from. My stomach turned as I crouched down, hoping they wouldn't notice me. They laughed softly, whispered words I couldn't make out, but their actions were clear. The chief's wife and my best friend, betraying him like this. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't move. I knew if the chief found out, things would never be the same. And it wasn't just the chief I was scared of. Awa was known for her strange powers. People whispered about her in the village, saying she knew dark secrets, that she could curse anyone who crossed her. For days after that, I couldn't sleep. I thought about telling the chief. I thought about confronting Kofi. But fear kept my mouth shut. Then, one night, Kofi showed up at my hut. His eyes were wide, filled with something I hadn't seen before. Guilt. Fear. I couldn't tell. "You know, don't you?" he asked, his voice shaking. I didn't answer, but he knew. I saw the chief's wife, Awa, with another man. But it wasn't just any man. It was Kofi, the chief's most trusted advisor and best friend. They stood close, too close, whispering things I couldn't hear. But what I saw next made my stomach twist. Awa leaned in and kissed Kofi, right there in the shadows where no one could see them, except me. My heart pounded in my chest, and I froze, not knowing what to do. This wasn't just some secret affair. Kofi had been like a brother to the chief. They had grown up together, fought side by side in battles, and led the village with pride. But now, Kofi was betraying him in the worst way possible. I tried to move, to leave quietly before they noticed me, but a twig snapped under my foot. They both jerked their heads toward me, eyes wide with fear. I didn't wait to see if they recognized me. I ran. My legs couldn't carry me fast enough as I raced through the dark, my mind spinning with what I had just witnessed. Betrayal. Lies. If the chief found out, there would be chaos. And what if they came after me for seeing too much? The whole night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I kept thinking about how this secret could tear the village apart, how the chief's heart would shatter if he knew. But I didn't know who to tell or if I should keep quiet and pretend I hadn't seen anything. The burden was heavy, and it weighed on my soul. The next day, everything seemed normal. The chief greeted Kofi with his usual wide smile, and Awa acted as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't shake the image from my mind. Every time I saw them, the guilt gnawed at me. I started avoiding the chief, afraid I'd sleep and say something. Weeks passed, then I thought maybe I could carry this secret to my grave. But secrets like that don't stay buried for long. One evening, while the village prepared for a festival, I overheard something that made my blood run cold. Kofi and Awa were planning to poison the chief. They wanted him out of the way so they could be together and take control of the village. I had to act fast. But would anyone believe me? I stood there, heart racing, paralyzed by fear. The weight of what I knew was too much. If I did nothing, the chief would die, betrayed by the two people he trusted the most. But if I spoke up, who would believe me? I was just a young man, nobody important. And Kofi, he was respected, feared even. The chief would never take my word over his. But I couldn't let it happen. I couldn't let them kill him. That night, while the village danced and celebrated, I slipped away to the chief's hut. My hands were shaking, and my throat was dry. I could barely form the words when I finally stood before him. His eyes were kind, filled with trust, but I felt sick knowing what I was about to reveal. "Chief, there's something I need to tell you. It's about Awa and Kofi." At first, he didn't believe me. How could he? Kofi was his closest friend, his brother in arms. But I told him everything, the kiss, the whispers, the plan to poison him. I expected him to throw me out, to accuse me of lying. But instead, he went silent, staring into the fire for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he spoke, his voice heavy with pain. "I've had suspicions, but I didn't want to believe it." The chief acted quickly after that. He called for a private meeting with Kofi and Awa, pretending he was none the wiser. He shared a drink with them, as he always did. But this time, he had switched the cups, giving Kofi the one meant for him. I watched from the shadows, my heart pounding, as Kofi took a sip. Within moments, Kofi's face twisted in shock. He clutched his throat, gasping for air, but it was too late. The poison had already done its work. Awa screamed, rushing to his side, but there was nothing she could do. Kofi's body went limp, and in that moment, all the lies, all the secrets, were laid bare. The chief didn't say a word to her. He just looked at her, a broken man, before walking out into the night. The village was never the same after that. The chief's heart hardened, and he trusted no one. Awa was banished, sent away with nothing but the clothes on her back. And me. I still feel the weight of that secret, the burden of betrayal that I was forced to uncover. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if it would have been better if I had kept quiet, if I had never seen anything at all. But deep down, I know the truth can't stay hidden forever. Secrets of the heart always find a way to unravel. After everything that happened, life in the village went on, but I wasn't the same. The chief never spoke of that night again, and neither did I. People could tell something had changed, but no one dared ask. The weight of the secret I had exposed felt heavier than ever. I thought I'd feel relief, but instead, I felt alone, burdened by the truth I wished I'd never discovered. The chief rewarded me in his own way. He gave me a piece of land and a few cattle. But it wasn't gratitude I saw in his eyes. It was sadness, maybe even regret. I had saved his life, but I had also destroyed it. The man who once laughed with his friend, who loved his wife deeply, was gone, replaced by someone colder, harder. As for me, the villagers started treating me differently. Some called me a hero, others a troublemaker who had caused a good man's death. Whispers followed me wherever I went. I couldn't escape the shadow of what I had seen, and I didn't know how to move on from it. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, haunted by the image of Kofi gasping for air, by Awa's screams, by the silence that followed. I had done the right thing, hadn't I? That's what I told myself, but the guilt never faded. The chief had trusted me, then I had exposed the betrayal, but at what cost? One evening, while walking through the village, I ran into the chief. He was older now, tired. We stood in silence for a long time, just looking at each other. Then, without a word, he nodded at me and walked away. It was the closest thing to forgiveness I'd ever get. Years passed, then I stayed in the village, but I kept to myself. I worked the land the chief had given me, built a small house, and lived quietly. People eventually stopped talking about that night, but I never forgot. How could I? I had learned the hard way that secrets can destroy not just the ones who keep them, but also those who uncover them. In the end, I realized the truth doesn't set you free, it just leaves you with more questions, and sometimes more pain than you can handle. I carried that secret with me for the rest of my life, never quite able to shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, it would have been better if I had never seen anything at all.